Welcome to Our Last Meal, the podcast on grief, loss, and food. I'm your host, Andrew. In every episode, I talk with a guest about someone important in their life, someone they've lost, and what role food played in their relationship. This week, I had the honor of talking with the host of the Pillow Talking podcast, Violeta. Violeta lives in Australia, so the time zone difference was a little funky trying to work that out, but I'm really glad I had a chance to talk with her. We talked everything from her home country of Argentina to food that she ate in Australia, from being a parent to being a child, and it was just a really fun conversation. And fun may seem like an odd way to describe a conversation about loss, but she was such a kind, thoughtful person and so engaging, and I just really enjoyed it, and I hope you will too. Before I start the interview, I do always like to plug up top. If you enjoy this show, please consider subscribing, sharing it with other people, rating and reviewing on whatever platform you use. This is a fully DIY operation. I am the only one who works on it. I don't do any advertising. This is really, truly a labor of love. So any kind of feedback you have would really mean a lot to me. So if you like it, please consider doing those things. Regardless, I will stop blathering now, and I'll go ahead and start the episode. I do always like to give a content warning here that there is talk of death, loss, grief, so please be mindful as you listen. And with that said, let's jump over to the interview. Hello and welcome to Our Last Meal. I'm your host, Andrew, and my guest this week is Violeta, professional writer who facilitates storytelling on the Pillow Talking podcast, a podcast featuring stories of real-life bedroom conversations. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Yeah. When I say today, technically you're joining me tomorrow. The time zone difference was a little weird.
It is, and it's extra weird because we are currently in summer daylight saving time. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. So, but you did it. You calculated it perfectly. Well done.
I appreciate that. I was so so you are on the east coast of Australia, correct?
That's right. I'm in Melbourne.
Okay. I was so worried that I was gonna have you sitting here waiting for an hour for me, or that I was gonna get on an hour early. I was like, I really hope I've got my math right.
You did really well. I have friends, like I said to you, I've got a friend in New York, and just getting it just right. And I'm not great at math, so it's always a thing.
I'll be honest, I'm not proud of how hard I had to think about it. When we said it was about a 16-hour difference, I'm not proud of the amount of effort it took for me to figure that out, but we got there.
Well, you could have just fluffed that because I wouldn't have known.
Well, it's great to have you. What's really cool for me though, talking to you, you're in Australia. One, I just think the fact that I'm sitting here in North Carolina on the east coast of the United States, you're in Melbourne in Australia. We can have a conversation and
I
record it,
know,
so we can put it out for the whole world. That is so cool to me.
isn't it? Isn't it?
It
And go ahead.
it's just wild. There are so many things you hear about how bad technology can be and all of this and how it can drive us apart. But I love things like this where it can really, bring people together and how it can, aid in just human connection. And I really do like that. And that's me nerding out for a moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm of an age now where I've been with technology now for a long time, and I've seen it evolve. And I remember how exciting it was when the internet became a thing. I'm actually a migrant, and when we migrated, it was a huge thing to get a cassette tape from
Yeah.
family overseas, and we'd all sit around this tape recorder to listen to messages that people had sent us, and we did the same. We sent cassettes back, and it was a massive deal. And I won't lie, the ructions it causes just because communication was so difficult.
Yeah.
It's not a small thing. It's a big thing. And nowadays, it's like I'm in contact with my family overseas who are all around the world all the time. this kind of thing. There's WhatsApp, there's this, there's that. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. It's I mean, it is really cool that, no matter how far, how close, I mean, you can stay in contact with anyone as long as there's at this point there's no barrier other than just willingness. So I mean, just
Yeah.
being able to reach out to somebody is amazing. The friends I have overseas, I have a friend who lives in Hong Kong. I mean, and we can still,
Wow.
stay in contact from time to time, just depending on, they're working at the time zones. It's nighttime there when it's daytime here, and vice versa. So that can make it a little tricky, but it is really cool that you can have this communication with other people. And
Yeah,
I've
definitely.
also I've also got to say too, this is extra cool for me just because I told my wife earlier this is officially the fourth continent that I've covered, just from
Oh,
conversations with folks.
fantastic.
Yeah, so I don't know that I'm gonna find someone in Antarctica, but it's a goal. We'll see if we can get somebody at some point.
Oh, put the word out there. They say that with technology now, the whole 6 degrees of separation thing.
Yeah,
Uh, they say that it's now 2 degrees because of how connected we are. So chances are that now someone who knows someone
who's in it?
um, who's in Antarctica.
I need to put that out there then.
Put it out there. 2 degrees of
So for any
separation.
listener, for anyone, if you're listening, if you are in Antarctica, if you know someone, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to them just to say I did. So I will say I'm so glad you're able to come on. This episode we were talking before we started recording just about the material, right? Just that grief is it can be a sensitive thing to talk about. Um, but you also said that the time that you've had to kind of go through that grieving process. It sounds like has helped. So we'll jump in, and can you tell us who we're going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about my mum. So my mother, who passed away in '99.
Oh,
So I used to call her Ma or Mama, but usually when I speak about her to other people, I say it was my mum.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while now.
yeah. So 23, 24 years.
Yeah, look,
Um,
I haven't even. Yeah, I guess I don't even keep count anymore because in so many ways, even though she's absent, she's always present. So um, yeah, it's a strange thing that I don't count. Is her influence is just so profound that yeah, she might as well just have gone yesterday, minus that ugh, intense pain.
yeah. Well, it. I really like the way you said that. That it's like she's still there. I mean, and that is beautiful though. That even with decades, from it happening to now, I mean, to still feel that closeness. Do you
Mm.
think that that's something that's helped you over the years? Is feeling like she's still there, feeling that closeness?
Definitely, definitely. And I have to say that I had to open my eyes to it because for a long time, all I felt was her absence.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, that's all I could feel, the absence of her in my life. It was the same for my sister, for my brother as well. There's three of us, and my mum also had we have half brothers. I can't speak for them, but I can speak for us. So it was all about the absence, and and that had to pass, and I had to open my eyes to kind of feel her, um, and see her influence everywhere, and see her in my sister, see her in my daughter, um, and once that happened, things got a lot easier. Um, but that takes a while. I remember my mum had one of her sons pass away. He actually used to live
Mm,
in North Carolina. So
really?
yeah, yeah, in Pathtown. My brother Roberto, he passed away when he was quite young, and she said to me one time, um, it gets a lot better when you learn to speak to the person who's gone. And I don't know that I ever got to the point where I speak to my mum, but I she's just there, and yeah, it's like she's just like a she might as well be as close as a phone call away, you know what I mean? So I can
Yeah.
reach out to her with my heart, with my mind, without necessarily speaking out loud. I don't know whether I made any sense whatsoever just then.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. I'll say I've never heard that before, that it gets easier when you can speak to the person who's not there. But it does make sense to me because, I think about people that I've lost. I mean, and I can still hear their voices sometimes,
Mm,
and I don't think that I'm crazy, but I
I know.
do think that those are those they're people that, they made an impact, in being able to just hear from, still hear their voice in your head. I don't know if you ever catch yourself in a scenario where you're thinking of doing something, or something has happened, and you hear her. Do you ever hear her voice in the back of your head telling
Yeah,
you, do this, don't do this, you shouldn't have
yeah.
done that?
Yeah, for sure. And my husband and I laugh about this all the time. We laugh about it all the time, saying yes. If it's something that she disapprove of, it's like, yeah, she's on my shoulder right now. She's not approving, but I'm gonna go
But you
for
got
it
it.
anyway.
You feel the need to apologize. I know you're not gonna like this. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
yeah,
have to.
yeah. Got to do it. And sometimes I think, oh well, she'd get a huge kick out of this.
Yeah, that's. I think that could be the most frustrating one. Whenever it's something that you know that they would enjoy,
Yeah,
and but I think it could almost help you to enjoy something more, because
yeah,
it's, when you're. I've never been pregnant, so I don't know from personal experience. But I've heard, when you're pregnant, you're eating for two, and I think that makes perfect sense. You've got
yep,
another living thing that you're growing. But it feels like with this, with that person that's still with you, you're almost experiencing something for two. If
yeah,
it's something that
yeah.
you think that they would have enjoyed.
Yeah, what a great way to look at it. It's a beautiful way of looking at it. Um, because at the end of the day, if the people that we're grieving, if they loved us and we love them, that's what they'd want. They'd
Yeah.
want us to live this moment. They'd want us to enjoy it, and for them as well. I really love that. What a great way to look at it.
Well, and and through doing this, I've spoken with a lot of really interesting people, and a few episodes back, I spoke with the Mashup Americans, and I'll gladly call them out anytime, just because I love what they're doing. They did a series on grief called Grief Collected.
Mm,
One of the most interesting things that I got from that, from talking with them, and from listening to the show, was just kind of a redefinition of grief. It's not necessarily that you are longing for this lost thing; it's that, grief really is an act of love, and
yeah,
it sounds so simple to say it out loud, but it's true. You can't grieve someone if you didn't truly, if there wasn't that love there, if there wasn't that strong bond. So really, when you think
absolutely.
about it, it's another expression of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certain that there's some kind of a scale, um, and yeah, and the love can go. Um, Look, the love can be quite far-reaching. So, um, one of the things that I've experienced in my life, and I don't want to take too much of a detour in this, but
Please.
I had a stillborn child
Oh,
um,
sorry.
uh, 30 years ago. So we've just gone past the anniversary. So it's funny that when I
Sorry.
was going through it, thank you. Look, she was the making of me, I have to say. When life gives you
Yeah.
something and you go, "Oh, that made me." That's what she
Yeah.
was for me. And at the time, we were being approached by women who had gone through it decades before, and at a time when babies used to get whipped away from their mums because they used to say, it's better if you don't bond, and the love that's there, it's not just the love for the child you're carrying, but it's also, you go, there's this Chinese saying that when a child born, it's already 9 months old. You go,
Yeah.
but when you first conceptualized the idea of having children, and you go, how old was I when I thought that I could have children and I would have children. And I believe that the love begins there. You know, the
Yeah.
idea of this child that's going to come into your life. So it's not something that's just recent. It's something that you begin to think about when you first opposed with the possibility. So I think that idea of love is absolutely correct, and I think that it goes back to even yeah to even these really early primordial um, feelings that we have.
That's so profound. I mean, and I've never thought of that way. But you're right though. It's because you're right. The love for your child. I've got one child, and that kind of love can almost cripple you at the
Yeah.
beginning, right? Whenever she was first born, just that thought of like it is hard for me to wrap my mind around how much I can love another person. I thought
Yes.
I understood that when I met my wife and we got married, and I'm like, okay, I understand the concept of love. And then we find out she's pregnant and I'm excited, and then I see her for the first time. It it will make you buckle over.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right, it doesn't just start in that moment. I mean, it really does go back even further than that. And it's a weird time thing because it starts before then, but you're also, you're looking at, because I don't think there's any parent out there who's not thinking about everything that their child could do in the future, every
Mm.
possibility. You're not just looking at the now or the past, you're looking at the present and or the future, and there's so much there.
Yeah.
Um, that's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that though. I it's a cruelty I wouldn't wish on anyone. And
Yeah,
yeah,
well, thank you. Like I say, it was the making of me, and I think that we made it stand for something. We really, really did. Um, it wasn't, uh, uh, I think it would be so much worse if it hadn't. Um, but whether I don't know whether it's the way the universe is designed, or whether it's there's a master plan, or whether I'm just stubborn. But when stuff like that comes my way, you try to make some meaning out of it.
yeah,
Um and I think I did. So um it's really really important to have gone through it for me. I know, like I said, it was the making of me, but also being able to have um, a level of understanding and empathy for something that's still a bit of a taboo to talk about. And
yeah,
that level of grief is it's really really hard for parents who go through it, because there is such an expectation that you can you can get over it just because you can get pregnant again.
yeah.
Um, so I'm
Which
happy
is
to
it's
say that I've helped out.
Yeah, and certainly you have. I mean, because you're right, it is very taboo still.
Mm,
Um, I think, and I won't go into specifics to respect their privacy, but I've got multiple people in my family who've miscarried, and
mm.
I remember whenever my wife was pregnant, we're afraid of everything during that time because everything that possibly could go wrong, we're convinced is going to go wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
All the testing that they do, just the anything, because it's so anxiety inducing.
yeah.
But really, we found out how common it was, and we're just, to this day, we're grateful. But we found out how common it was, but it's just that thing, people don't talk about it.
Mm.
The women in my life, who I am close with, who've gone through that, I could count on probably one hand the time that they have all spoken about it over the years.
Yeah,
And
wow.
it sucks that it's, I don't know if it's I don't know. And this is where, and I'll be the first to call it out. This is ground that I'm not real comfortable walking on, just because I feel like I've never carried a child, so I'm not really qualified to say or to speak on that, and I don't want to come off as disrespectful,
Yeah,
or sticking my foot in my mouth. But it does suck that we don't that we don't offer the space for people to talk about that, or for women to talk about that and share it.
yeah. I don't think you're putting your mouth in it, your foot in it at all. I think that's a welcome thing, because the by far the thing that parents who've gone through this, by far the thing they have the most in common is an inability to talk. Um,
Yeah.
and I remember, and I always get a little bit emotional when I talk about this, but I remember when we were going through this, my husband was stopped in the middle of the street. My husband at the time was very well known in the town where we lived. And this woman went up to him, and she was an old woman. She would have been, late 70s, early 80s. And
Yeah.
she listened to him and she said, this happened to me. And they they took him away from me. And she kind of gripped my husband's shoulders and said, my husband forbid me to speak about him ever again,
Mm.
but I named him Jimmy, and I need you to know that I named him Jimmy. And that
Oh
was a
God.
luxury for that woman. It was a luxury to be able to talk to someone who understood, and a luxury to actually say that name out loud.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're putting your foot in it at all if you give people the opportunity to speak about these children that they still carry in their hearts.
Yeah. Because I mean, she's in her early 80s. Let's say 60 years she carried that. I mean,
Yeah,
that love doesn't fade.
no, no, not at
That's
all.
I would tell anyone I'm agnostic probably on my best day, but having a child makes me feel like I don't know what lives on when we're gone, but I mean that love I have for her, there's doesn't matter what gets snuffed out of me. I know that stays. There's no way that doesn't stay.
Absolutely.
Um, I will say though, you said something about just giving people the opportunity to talk about it, and really that's the core of the show, and that's
Yeah,
what I want to do is allow people, give them that space because I've talked about this before. It feels like when you lose somebody, and I don't know if this feels familiar to you, so tell me if it does or doesn't. Losing someone, it almost feels like you have a stain on you, or when you're really in the thick of it, it feels like other people can sense it on you, whether they know what's happening or
mm,
not, or what you've been through,
yeah,
and there feels like an otherness almost about you, where it's hard
yes,
to, and it makes everyone uncomfortable because immediately when you tell somebody passed away who I'm close to and I'm grieving them, all I've ever wanted to do was talk about that person and
yeah,
just ramble about them. But it
yeah,
makes other people uncomfortable because it's a reminder of mortality. And I understand that, but that's why I wanted this show to allow people to talk about their loved ones. And so I just like to ask you, tell me about your mom. I know we've I know we've kind of gone in some circles and we've talked about her a little
yeah,
bit,
yeah, yeah. Well,
but what are
it's
the things you want to say about her that you've wanted somebody to ask you about?
yeah. My mum. It's really interesting because my husband, who's my second husband, actually never got to meet her. And
Mm.
I say all the time, I describe things about her, and it's so frustrating because I cannot get her across to him. I just cannot. My mum was an extraordinary woman. She was absolutely extraordinary. And there were just so many facets to her. She she was incredibly warm and welcoming. Um, and that's what most people remember her for. But um, she wasn't um, she wasn't she did have her prejudices and
Yeah.
if she had something against you, it's not that she was mean or anything, but because she had such a warm vibe, the absence of it was quite obvious. And for my mum to show you love, like that was like the biggest thing. Like for anyone that my mum loved, as soon as they felt loved and accepted, it was such a huge thing. So it wasn't just
Yeah.
in the family, but in the community. And so she was like that. And she was incredibly uh, let's see, she was also very creative and intelligent. She loved music. She loved literature, and she is the one who encouraged me to be a writer. Like there was never any question um, that I should do anything else as soon as I expressed an interest.
Yeah.
Um, and and she loved to have fun. But she went through a lot in her life as well. Things that quite difficult and things that we can't quite comprehend, which made her guarded in some ways. So she's very much a product um, of her time and place,
Yeah.
and um, and there are things about what she lived that I have to approach with a great deal of empathy because yeah, they let's see, I don't know how to express this. Um, yeah, the particular things about where she was born and when she was born that made things a little bit difficult for her personally.
Yeah.
So she was born in Argentina, as I was, at the start of last century, at a time when women had a particular place and they were supposed to be a particular thing, and um, yeah, it in Argentina, I don't know about now, but it's very difficult to be an individualist woman, and that's what my mum was. She was an individualist in a very collectivist nation, and yeah, so to be an individual when what's expected of you is to be a good woman, to be a good woman, it's very cut and dried. You're a good
Yeah.
mom, you're a good wife, and that'll do you. And anything else is just out of place, kind of, that's not your place to be.
Yeah. And so I'll say this. I appreciate the fact that it sounds like you clearly you love your mother, and that hasn't changed or gone.
No, absolutely.
But I also I respect and appreciate the fact that you can acknowledge it. I mean, there are things maybe that you didn't agree with, or that you
Mm,
know but you also you approach it from that place of empathy, because I
mm.
think that's another thing. Whenever we lose someone, we I guess what I'm trying to say is that no one is perfect, and that feels like that's even that kind of goes out the window, though. Whenever we lose somebody, we only want to remember the best, but people are
Yeah,
people. And but understanding that empathy of they are a product of their environments. Everybody is the way they are for some reason. There's been some
yeah,
imprint. And you're talking culturally. My wife's family is from Central America, and so she has shared with me things before that essentially, to your point, not always easy to be to be an individualist woman. I like the way you phrase that, because from what she's told me, I think that's very common there as well.
yes,
uh,
definitely.
Certain expectations, and that's one of the things I like about society now, is I think we've gotten a little better. Still a lot of work to go. I
Yep, I would agree with
um
that.
I can't speak for Australia, but I can say in the United States, a lot of work to go there. And it's something that we are firm believers, and it's got to start at home. So that's something that we try to reinforce with our daughter, is that our expectations of her, to do her best, try her best, and be happy.
Yeah.
Outside of that, she's got to kind of set the path for herself. But those are the most important things.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And I love what you said there. I think there's something that I disagree with, and has possibly helped with my grief, is it's very common when someone passes away, or they die, however you want to express it, is that um, they're either deified or demonized. So you either make them into flawless, godlike beings, or
yeah,
they were the worst. No redeeming qualities whatsoever.
yeah,
And I don't think either way is healthy. And I would rather have that, remember them in their full humanity. Um, that served me a lot better. Um, because you know remembering a flawless person, I'm not remembering my mum. I just wouldn't be
yeah,
you know
yeah. And that's That's true. I mean, and I think that's a really healthy way to look at it too. I mean, because you almost going back to what we said at the beginning, that person, they stay with you. They don't just leave.
Mm.
They're still with you. But if you remember them as a flawless person, how much more pressure does that add as opposed to
Yes.
remembering they were just a human being just like me
Yeah,
and probably trying to do their best with what they had.
that's
You
it.
know, I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. And if nothing else, it probably takes some pressure off of you and maybe that does give you that space to grieve a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely did for it does help for me. And um yeah, my husband's parents, they're also not here, and we when we speak about them, it runs the gamut. It absolutely runs the gamut. There's stuff that we go, oh man, that was bad, and there's stuff that we go, I thought we miss them because they were great. There's always it's never simple, but in remembering all of this, I think it's just so much better. And I never got to meet his folks either, so I get a sense of their realness as well.
Yeah. I do wonder with that, you've probably both heard so much about each other's, parents. I mean, I wonder, do you feel like you know his parents or does he feel like he knows your mother?
Yeah, you know what? I in a little way, I do, and there are some things um, that we make fun of each other about. So his mum's name was Marg, and she was a pocket rocket. She was a dynamo, and he says that he'd be getting dressed, and all of a sudden his shirt would be gone because she'd already got it to put in, to wash it, and it was already clean. So I'll say stuff if I'm doing something and something disappears. I'll say, "Did you marg me? Did you just marg me?" So I feel like I know them. And he says to me, he expresses stuff about his dad, and you know, he says he's a lot like his dad. So I feel like I kind of know what his dad would have been like, and I think I'm a lot like my mum. So I think
Yeah.
that he feels that he knows a little bit about my mum just by virtue of knowing me.
It is cool the traits and habits you pick up and from somebody. You mentioned earlier that your daughter, you can see your mother and her sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Did she
definitely.
ever meet did she ever
Yeah,
meet her?
yes, definitely, and they were very, very close. My mum was there when she was born, and my mother adored her, just absolutely adored her. And she'd say, I don't have favorites, but there's something about Sarah. um, and you know, I definitely see that um, just this ability that my daughter has um, to just well, first and foremost, the her very particular way of looking at the world, even though she's one of a kind. The way she looks at the world often reminds me of my mum, and her sense of justice
Yeah.
and her practicality, and the amazing creativity. My mum was so creative. There was nothing that she couldn't do. Like if she decided to put her hands and her brain to something, she would excel. And that's my daughter. Whereas I've got a couple of things I'm creative at. Like I've got my licks. This is the couple of things I can do. But my daughter is like, I'm going to try this out, and then it's like, boom, she's amazing.
That is a character trait I admire that not everybody has. It feels like only a small group of people have, but you have people that just an innate confidence of I could probably do that
Mm,
and just go try to do it.
yeah.
And I have nothing but respect for that. I wish I had more of that in me. I'm much more of the I don't know if I can do this. I spend more time trying to talk myself out of how I can't do it as opposed to trying to talk to myself that I could do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I love that confidence.
It's
So
awesome. It's awesome.
and it's one of those things that will, I'm sure, in so many ways, has and will serve her well.
Yeah, yeah. It has done. It has done. And fundamentally, it makes her happy. I I can't imagine a world in which she wouldn't be creating something.
uh,
Um, yeah, she's she always needs that outlet.
that, that's the thing. And as a parent, I mean, the older my daughter gets, the more I think about this. That really, at the end of the day, more than anything, I want her to be happy. I want her to be
Mm,
successful. I want her to do great things, but that doesn't mean she has to go down any one certain path. I don't ever want to push her
yeah,
that you need to be a doctor or a lawyer. I just want her to be happy.
yeah,
If she can say at the end, if she can say at the end of the day that I'm happy, I had a good day. I mean that I don't know that means more to me knowing that I will have left her here in a space where she can be happy and be joyful and share that with other people.
yeah, for sure, absolutely. That's uh, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So this podcast, I do like to talk about food a lot.
Yes, let's talk
And
food.
talk. Yes. When we were communicating beforehand, you shared some foods that your mother loved and that she made, and tell me about some of those. What were some of your mother's recipes that you love the most?
Oh well, it's she was a brilliant cook. She was a brilliant, innovative cook, and everything not only tasted good, but it looked good. And um and she didn't believe in fried foods. So just a little sidebar here. Just a little sidebar because we never got French fries, what we call chips here. We
Oh
never got
no.
them growing up, and unless we went out somewhere, you know. And when when we came to Australia, because we're so influenced by the English and British culture, my brother
Yeah.
comes home one day and says to my sister and me, he says, "Do you know there are shops in Australia that only sell fish and chips?" I'm going, "No, you're joking." He said, "Yes, you can. You can just go in and pay, it was 20 cents at the time, and get this huge packet of fries." And we're like, "No, you're putting us on." So I'll show you. So we discovered this. What is this nirvana? This place where you just walk in and order fries and don't have to worry about your mother not making chips
I'm
anymore.
I'm guessing this was one that we didn't share with her to say, "Hey, we found this great shop." This was probably a secret kept to the
It
siblings, right?
was secret for a
Of
while.
course, yeah.
Uh, we get 20 cents worth of chips just before hopping onto the train to get home and then, yeah, have dinner. And she never knew. But, so, and everything had to be like a little bit, she always used to add a special touch to something. So, for example, um, one of the typical dishes in Argentina is just a standard, it's not standard. Let me explain it to you. Is the shepherd's pie, okay?
Okay.
Except that in Argentina, the filling is the same as an empanada filling. So it's got beef, it's got raisins, it's got spice, it's got eggs. So it's like if you imagine a beef empanada, that's the filling for the shepherd's pie. And for the topping, she wouldn't just make mashed potatoes. She'd make duchesse potato, which is a very rich mash with egg yolks and nutmeg and butter. And then she would
Hmm.
pipe this. Or if she didn't pipe it, she would spread it over the top and then decorate it with a fork, and it always looked amazing. So everything that she did always had to have that little extra something. So if she made deviled eggs, for example, she would mince um, an anchovy so fine that you couldn't taste that it was there. No, you couldn't taste the anchovy, but of course you could taste what we call these days umami.
Yeah.
But um, but you know that word didn't exist back then for us, and people used to say, "What do you put in your deviled eggs?" So um, everything she did just had to have that little touch of something. And I remember one time and this is why she and my daughter got along so well. My daughter would have been like 3 years old. My mum made her some oatmeal for breakfast, And my daughter tastes it and says, "Did you put lemon zest in this?" And my mum says, "Yes, I did." She goes, "It's very good." So
So
even when making something as plain as oatmeal, my mum zested a lemon and put it in along with the sugar and the milk. So yeah, so everything she made was delicious. But I think my favorite thing that she did, um, there was handmade pasta, handmade fresh pasta. That was
okay,
my favorite.
I've got to. I want to hear about this, but I've got to say too. Just what you mentioned earlier that she was very creative and that she,
Yes.
was in everything she did, and I can see that in the food you're talking about
Mm.
because I joke around with my wife all the time. Whenever we're making dinner, that we've got to plate it properly because you eat with your eyes first.
Yes, that's right.
Uh, to the point that just I love a bit. So anytime I can do a bit that makes me laugh and maybe makes her laugh, I'm gonna do that. So,
You and my husband would get along great. He's got a bit.
well, and there you have to entertain yourself.
Yes, you do.
I firmly
At our
believe if you're
expense.
not yeah, as a husband, I will say that's and I try not to be annoying about it. But there've been times she's asked me to make her a sandwich, and sure, I'll make you a sandwich, and I'm gonna cut it in half, and I'm gonna try to like lay it out on the plate nice and elegantly, and put some chips on the plate, in the middle of
Yeah.
the slices, and I've taken even like scored a little bit of mustard on the plate, and then just kind of
Oh,
take the spoon and I do this,
oh
like they
my
do on Food
goodness.
Network. Oh, it's ridiculous, and
Beautifully extra.
I laugh, she rolls her eyes, but it feels like sounds like your mom did this, but instead of trying to be joking about it, she did it and really put in that effort to make it visually appealing. I
Oh,
love that.
absolutely. And you know how we were talking earlier about, um, having my mum on my shoulder going, I don't know about that. Um, I feel her doing this every time I put rice on the plate to accompany something like white rice. So whenever we had rice as an accompaniment, this is what she used to do. She used to make the rice, and she'd normally, rice for an accompaniment for my mum usually had butter and parmesan in it. So if it was to accompany a stew,
Oh
what
yeah.
she would do, she had a small glass and she would butter the inside of it and then sprinkle the inside with chopped parsley, put the rice in, and then unmold that onto the plate so that your stew came with this little perfect tower of parsleyed rice.
I
And
love
whenever I
it.
just have plain rice on the plate, it's like she's on my shoulder going, you could do better.
you know I do firmly believe that sometimes just good food on a plate is fine, but there is
Yes,
something fun though about that extra little bit of presentation, and it makes it fun. And
it does.
I love that she did that. It sounds like she did that for your benefit, but it also sounds like she just enjoyed it and that she
Yeah.
got a kick out of it. I love that.
I think so. I think so. And um, Alice Walker, the writer, talks a lot about this. She wrote about it. She talked about specifically about African American women, but it applies to so many women around the world. Is that when the avenues of creativity are closed to you, what's left, what's allowable for you to do, how do you express your creativity? And my mum
Yeah.
had her ways of expressing, and that was one of them. So she, her other way was, she was a couturist, a designer, um, but once that part of her career was over and she was racing us, food was her way of expressing creativity.
There's something so this is what's so beautiful to me about humanity. There's so
Mm.
much to be disgusted by and so much to be annoyed by. The resiliency though of just people. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm smart enough to try to to get across the point I want to make, but the 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 fact that people can, okay, I've just been tasked with I need to make dinner. This is
Mm,
the role society has given me, but that's not enough. I'm going to do more. The fact that, in anything and everything,
mm.
you think about, school kids that have to wear a uniform, and the ones that find a way. I'm going to still find a way to have my own personal style and
Yeah,
to
yeah,
express myself. It is so important for people to have expression, and
yeah,
it sucks that we beat that out of people.
yeah,
We don't allow people to express themselves. And it starts early with,
yeah,
don't do that, that's weird, or that's
yeah,
gonna other people don't like that. We don't just let people be themselves, and that
mm,
sucks.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I love the fact though that she didn't accept that. She found a way to get that across and get that out of herself
yeah,
and
yeah.
share
She
that.
definitely did.
Now tell me about this pasta that she made, because I do love pasta, and you said homemade, and that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Well, look, Buenos Aires, where we're from, is so Italian. And if you go to Buenos Aires, like your wife, being a Central American, if she listened to the way that Spanish is spoken there, she'd see that it's done with an Italian accent, Italian inflection. Like you go to
Yeah,
Buenos Aires and people, da, ba, 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 ba. That's the rhythm. It's very Italian. So
yeah,
the um, so it's a very Italian kind of um, a place, and not only, but it's incredibly influential. And we do have some Italian in the family as well. We've got on one side of her family, from her mum's side, we have got one stream that goes all the way to Genova in Italy. So the ability to make pasta and make it by hand is really well respected. And the ability to have the touch, knowing, so not starting with a recipe, starting with a ring of
yeah.
flour and the eggs or egg yolks in the middle, and beginning to work them in and knowing when the dough's had enough, the pasta hand. So I'm like this now, and my kids find it incredibly frustrating. But my mum was like this, like when I was learning how to make gnocchi. She's going, I'm going, how much flour? And she's going, as much as the potatoes need. How much do I know what the potatoes need? And she's going, you'll know. And I'm going, no, I won't know. I won't know. But with enough practice, of course, you do know what the, what the potatoes need.
I can't help laugh. My mother-in-law was trying to tell my wife how to make this sopa de pollo that she makes, and it
Oh,
is
yes.
incredible. It's so good, and she tried to explain her how to make it. And it's okay. You put potato in, this much potato, or this much salt, this much cilantro. No actual description of how much exactly.
Yes.
And but I've heard this so many times. My grandmother one time tried to tell me how to make fried cornbread, and it was similar. Add some cornmeal to some buttermilk. With how much? Oh, you just know. Somebody that I work with, she was explaining. She tried watching her aunt make meatballs. They're Italian, so she tried to learn from her how to make meatballs. She had to write down, pour the salt for 4 seconds. She was watching her and just trying as best she could to just base it off of that. I
Yeah.
love that though, that is so universal
Yeah,
when
it
you're trying to
is.
learn to make something, that just these are the basic ingredients, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so she, I think her favorite was ravioli.
Oh,
She would, and she had different fillings for it. So she would do the classic spinach and ricotta, but I think her favorite was probably fresh ricotta, minced parsley, a little bit of garlic, some nutmeg, and walnuts. And
mm.
my mum was fussy with her walnuts. She would peel them individually, like peel the walnuts so they didn't have any skin. And that's a hell of a job. Um, so that was her favorite filling for ravioli. So she would, and we didn't have a pasta machine or anything. And I don't know if you've ever made pasta by hand, but you use that durum wheat. flour, and it's tough, man. It's so tough. There she is with a rolling pin, and so she would do that. Her sister once gave her this recipe for agnolotti, which was similar, and you make those one at a time, very exactingly. And every now and then, like for something quick, she'd just make, I say quick, but tagliatelle. So what she'd do on a Sunday, she'd clean the house and kind of banish us all out of the house, and my sister and my brother could take care of themselves, but my dad would take me to the park. And when we all came back in the early afternoon, the house would smell like lemon furniture polish and this pasta sauce that had been cooking for hours. And she'd
Oh,
made tagliatelle, so she'd just make it by rolling out a sheet of pasta, then rolling it up like a Swiss roll, and then just cutting it across. And that would be our Sunday thing. And it's and that's one of the things that I don't think I can capture ever again, because now I'm the grown up. It's that
yeah,
feeling of coming home and the house smells amazing because someone's been cooking just for you. You
yeah.
know, it can happen sometimes with a spouse, but
It's not
because
the
you,
same.
it's not the same because you're equals in this relationship, and you're, yeah, it's a different thing. I don't know,
There,
but
there's
I
something
miss
about being
that.
nurtured, though. I
Yeah, it's
guess,
that whole nurturing thing.
and yeah, I don't know, and I'm a firm believer too that and it doesn't just have to be a mother, because I don't think cooking is solely a mother's job. I really don't.
No, definitely.
But there's something about that food that's made, that food that you love, that's made by that person you love,
Yeah.
that I think it's I think it's almost corny to say that there's love in it and that's the secret ingredient, but there's love is the secret ingredient, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
I
something,
agree.
yeah. It's it's like 1,000 times more powerful than MSG, but there's just there's something about it that just makes it taste so much better.
Yeah, I agree. It is absolutely corny, but I think it's great. I read um, uh, years ago in this cookbook I have, um, something, the writer said that anyone would rather have um, beans on toast, so tinned beans on toast, from a happy cook rather than a gourmet meal from a resentful or grumpy one.
Yeah,
And um, and I realized that that's what I had all my life, um, and something I've strived to do with my kids. I don't know that I've been 100% successful, but um, I I I don't want to be a martyr to the kitchen. I love to cook. I'm also a great cook, but if if the feeling's not there, I just say let's order in, or
yeah,
let's have, I don't know, let's have eggs on toast or whatever, because I don't want to get to that point where it's just so stressful that it's just not, that it's stopping that lovely interchange, um,
yeah.
between your feelings, your good feelings, and the food.
Well, and the food's great, but it really comes down to the company too. And
Yeah, absolutely.
my we went to dinner tonight at a, I don't know that you, yeah, again, this is one of those, this is ignorance on my part. There's a restaurant, Chili's. I don't know that I don't know that there are Chili's in Australia. I don't know that you've
No, I
been to
don't
the
think
United
so.
States and been to one. It is a fast casual Tex-Mex restaurant. It's nothing special.
Yep.
But it's fine. Nothing special. Um, but just being there with my wife and my child tonight, it was amazing. It just, we walked out of there, just my wife and I were just gushing about just how nice of a night it was, just because the three of us got to be together, and
Yeah.
that's what matters. I'll backtrack just a little bit though to something else you said. You talked
Sure.
about you don't know if it's the same as hers, I guess. I think there can be a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves that it has to be as good as what I remembered. But you think about it, she may have had that same pressure of trying to make it as good as what she remembered from whenever she was a
That's
kid.
right.
But
That
it's a
is
whole different
absolutely
thing.
right. That's
And
absolutely. And she used to say, I can never get the stew just like my mum's. She used to say it, I can't ever get it right. She used to say that. And and another thing that she could never get right, uh, according to her, like we loved everything, but she had this thing, and it's funny because my kids say that I'm always apologizing for my food. Uh, they're all liars, of course. But yeah, so my mum will say, "Oh, damn, yes, it's very nice, but still not as good as my mum's." And I think, you know, uh, it's funny because I don't know whether it's pressure or whether it's just the desire to taste that again. It's
yeah.
actually really, really interesting. One of the things that my mum couldn't get the same as my grandmother's, like her mum's. there's um there's these little fried pastries that are very, very traditional in Argentina. They're called pastelitos de dulce, which means jam pastries, and they're done with a flaky pastry, and they've got usually quince paste in the middle, and then they are deep fried until they open up like a flower, and then they are bathed in syrup. So it's like a cross between
Oh.
a pastry and baklava. I don't know. They're delicious. But my grandmother had a filling that is nowhere else in the country. She used to make this filling um, with dried apricots that she used to cook, and they were quite delicious. And I thought that maybe it was a regional thing. No one was able to teach us how to make them. We could never get them right. And anyway, I did some research one time, and I just went, what if the filling isn't traditional from the Argentine culture at all? And I think I told you that my mum was raised in a Jewish neighborhood. I just went, what if this is like a Jewish thing? And I looked it
Huh.
up, and lo and behold, there's these apricot pastries, these Jewish apricot pastries, um, and when I made it, it was exactly like hers. So my grandmother took that filling and adapted it to the traditional pastry, and yeah, which I found extraordinary. In our lives, we've always been thinking that this was our family thing, and it was, but it was my grandmother combining, what she learned probably from some neighbor with what she already knew.
I've always been a fan of this, like this idea of fusion of cultures
Yes.
and recipes, and taking bits and pieces. I love the way because there's so many great things that come out of that. And again, probably corny, probably cheesy, but I don't care. I think it speaks to something bigger because I really do put a lot of value on food,
Mm,
and not even like high end food. I just mean just food in general. That food can be so much more than just fuel.
yeah.
It's a great way to learn another culture, to experience another culture.
Yeah, for
And so
sure.
this idea, yeah, mashing up foods, it's like mashing up different cultures and different peoples. Great things can come out of that,
Yeah. Yep.
and that's proof positive right there.
Yeah, it is. And we call it fusion now, but people have been doing this for millennia, right? You
Yeah,
know, as long as people have been moving around, um, and the first thing you do when you go to a new place is you go, okay, how can I recreate the tastes of home? And then someone goes, well, that smells good, that looks good. Teach me how to do that. And and new cuisines are born.
yeah. I mean, brand new dishes and like you said, brand new cuisines just from I miss a certain flavor from home. What's the closest I can get here?
Yeah,
And what can we do with it? I love
that's it.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Me too. I think it's brilliant, um and just the play between all of these things is it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I love that you've got Jewish inspired Argentinian, pastries, and then there's some Italian in there as well. I love it.
Yeah, we've got all kinds of things in my family, and my grandfather was on my dad's side. He was Lebanese, so there's that whole Middle Eastern thing there.
Oh
And
yeah,
so my mum learnt to cook my dad's and my grandfather's favorite dishes as well, um, so that that she could make my dad feel good. So yeah, so again, my mum just went, yeah, of course, I'll make that. I'll learn how to make that. Not a problem.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And for you getting to grow up in that and getting to just in your home, I guess, getting to experience all these different types of food, that had to be great.
Yeah, so great. So great because, now I realize, just how varied and wonderful our cuisine was. My friends in my neighborhood, they were getting the same meals over and over again. Like I wanted the hot dogs and chips, but they were probably getting that every Tuesday on the dot. Monday was this, Tuesday was that, Wednesday was that. Whereas my mum's going, oh, what am I going to create today?
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that you don't fully appreciate when you're a kid. You just want what everyone else is having, but
Yeah.
later on you realize just how bloody marvelous it was.
Yeah, it's I ca- you know I've heard that before. My brother-in-law growing up, he apparently he wanted fast food. He didn't want the
Yeah,
stuff that my mother-in-law would make, and she's an incredible cook. So there's all this great food that he didn't eat when he was younger, that he's told me he kicks himself now that he didn't appreciate when he was younger. Thankfully, he's in his 20s now. He's got more of an appreciation of it, but
yeah,
still, so many great meals he missed out on.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, and you miss out. You do miss out. And the thing is that I guess stuff like the fast food and that's always going to be there.
Yeah,
But someone cooking for you, that's not always going to be there.
there's a
Um,
time limit on it.
so like the burger can wait. You can get a burger anytime, literally.
Yeah, get the homemade
um,
pasta instead.
yeah, yeah, like this thing that this person is making for you right now. That's finite. It's not
Yeah.
forever.
and and that's I think that's a great way to look at it. It's not forever. We've got to appreciate those things while we have them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
again,
for sure.
it's not a matter of how fancy it is. It's just I really think it's the love that's put into it. That's the secret ingredient.
Definitely. Yeah, I think so too. Um, yeah, the love, because the love translates into care as well. It's even something that's quick can just have that. Yeah, the care that goes
Yeah.
into it.
Well, I wanted to ask you, was there anything else you wanted to tell me about your mother, just about her, about the food she
Yeah,
made?
yeah. Look, I think yeah, I wanted to. One of the things that I think I mentioned um, when we were emailing, and I did say, about honoring your parent, on order, sorry, honoring the loved one who's gone. Um, my sister and I, after a couple of years of really having a hard time after the loss and feeling that loss, we
Yeah,
decided that we were going to celebrate her birthday every year. And so my sister and my niece, so it's her daughter and my daughter and I, we always do something to remember her. And it includes something that she'd love to do. So we might go see a musical. We might go and we've got an amazing area here called St Kilda. We might go to St Kilda, which is also a bit of a Jewish enclave, and we go to Europa Cake Shop and order some pastries and we just have a great time and we just laugh and laugh and
yeah,
and it's it's really interesting because when my mum and her sisters got together, when my mum and my dears, you could hear the laughter from blocks away. It was just they laugh so hard, and when we get together on those days, eating and talking, we invariably end up laughing so hard, and everyone in the cafe or whatever just looking at us. And there's one cafe owner in St Kilda who goes, I never see anyone have as great a time as when you girls come in. And that's really gratifying because we're carrying that on as well. But so we do that, and for Mother's Day, I it this was a dirty secret, my sister and I, was that it was a few years before she and I could actually enjoy Mother's Day for ourselves and not feel
Yeah.
that we're missing out. Um, but you know, I celebrate it, and I make her favorite dessert. That's my way of remembering her, which was flan. I make a flan, and I make a damn good flan, and and in Argentina, flan a la mode is what's it called? Flan mixto. Is it flan mixto? I think that's what it's called, but it's our version of a la mode. It's served with whipped cream and chantilly cream and dulce de leche. So
Oh God. Oh my God.
it's altogether too sweet, but it's once a
Yeah.
year.
Sometimes you need something that's just way too much sugar. That is perfectly
Absolutely.
acceptable.
Yeah. So that's my thing. So I yeah, so that's my thing. On Friday or Saturday, I'll go, okay, it's time to make Mars flan, and whoever's there gets to enjoy it with me, and we think of her and thank you for the love of flan.
That's and that's one of those things. I mean, I think anybody with if they're smart, I think they make sure that they're nearby around that time just to make sure that they get some of that because that sounds incredible. That
Yeah,
sounds
it is.
absolutely incredible.
It's amazing. And her favorite thing, which I made for her only once, she used to rhapsodize about this Basque version. I'm pretty sure it's Basque, a version of flan, which is made with fresh orange juice instead of milk.
Ooh,
And it is incredible. It is, I don't know why I only ever made it the once. Um, but yeah, same. So straightforward flan, except that you just replace the milk and the cream, if you use it, with fresh orange juice, and it's stunning.
that sounds wonderful because I'm a big fan of citrus in things now.
Yes.
That's in the last 10 years. That's really become more prominent for me. I love citrus in there. That sounds like that'd be instead of just really rich and too heavy. That sounds like that'd be very refreshing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It is, and the combination of um, citrus with the caramel is stunning. I remember when I made it, I did accompany it with oranges. So this is something I used to do a lot. I used to um, perfectly peeled oranges, and you get a knife and you cut between the segments, and
Yeah.
then make a caramel and pour it over that, um, and just let that sit for at least an hour. The orange combines with the caramel, and you end up with yeah. I look, if you've never had oranges and caramel, it's just a brilliant combination that more people should know about. But I served that flan with those oranges, and it's
That
incredible.
sounds great.
Yeah.
I love orange and dark chocolate is really good. So I can
Yes.
imagine that the orange and the caramel is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a similar thing because the dark chocolate's got that bitterness, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
love that bitter flavor. And
yeah,
like with the
me too.
citrus, it balances so well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the same kind of thing. It's that balancing out of the citrus with the bitter. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so I've got a mission for myself coming up soon, which is is orange and caramel. And if I can, I've never made flan. I don't know how to make flan, but I
Oh,
will
it's
find a
easy.
recipe.
It's easy. I'll send you mine. People do tend to overcomplicate flan, but it's quite simple. And I'm sure your mother-in-law could probably teach you how to make flan.
I honestly, I think she could make anything that the things that she's made before. Just we come over and it's like, oh, I made a like, oh, we went to Miami and we had all the Cuban pastries, and so I decided I wanted some pastelitos. So here you go. Okay, I'm fine with it, Or I decided to. Oh yeah, that's the thing. She knows she loves me because she knows I will eat anything that she makes.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, I love it too. So anything that she wants to experiment with, she knows I will gladly help her out.
Awesome. As it
Yeah.
should be. As it should be.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me to this evening, this afternoon. Before
Great.
we
It's
go,
been a
the a couple
blast.
well, a couple of things. So the last question I had for you before we I have you talk about your show is, if you had a chance to have one more meal with your mother, what would that be?
That's a good question. I think it would possibly involve pasta. Um, and I would make her the cake that her mother used to make for birthdays, which it was a walnut cake. It has more walnuts in it than flour. And what you do is you make it a minimum of a day before you eat it, because you have to split it in half and slather the inside of it with dulce de leche. And then you
Oh,
let that sit overnight. And what happens is that it just permeates through the cake. And she only ever had that a couple of times after she was a grown up. And she always talked about how she'd miss it. So I would I would make that for her, because I'd know that she it would just transport her back
yeah,
to times with her mum.
that's lovely. That is lovely. I appreciate you sharing everything you have with us today. I really
Thank
do.
you.
It is an honor for me to get to do this show just because I love having people on who can come on and have engaging conversations, but also just open up and just be honest and talk about somebody in such a warm light. So I just want to say thank you so much for that.
Thank
I
you.
also
Great.
it's been a pleasure. I do also though I want to give you time to promote your show because I know you have a podcast as well. So would you mind
Yes.
telling us more about that?
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. And look, you and me, we're all about the stories, right?
Yeah,
And that's what I have. So Pillow Talking is a podcast where um, I basically narrate the stories that people send me, and they are stories about conversations that they've had, intimate conversations that they've had in the bedroom, and why the bedroom. And I guess at the end of the day, it's a private place. It's an intimate place. It's a place where we are ourselves, because there's no one else watching or listening, and
yeah,
you tend to have um, different kind of conversation there than you do elsewhere. And lately, uh, over the past year or so, people have sent me um, conversations, stories about conversations that include not necessarily significant others, but a sibling or a best friend, and those furtive conversations that you have during a sleepover or whatever,
yeah,
and which has been really amazing. It's so it's all about that. And it's a very simple podcast. It's just me and my voice and these amazing stories. And um, and I'm always looking for stories. The listenership is small but devoted. And I'm happy to let that grow as it will, like you are, just
yeah,
organically. Um, I I'm happy with that, and I'm patient. But yeah, just having people share their stories is the most important thing to me. I love it. It's just like you. It's a privilege to get them. It's a privilege when someone shares that part of themselves. So yeah, you can find me. You can find my website. It's pillowtalkingproject.com. You can listen there, but you can also submit a story there. And yeah, if any of your listeners would like to send me something, I'd love to read it. I read each one. I respond to each one, and yeah, I'd love that. So thank you for letting me talk. It's a simple podcast, but I hope it's profound. I hope that people get a lot out of it.
I love that. I love that concept, and I really do think that everybody has a story, whether they know it or not, whether they believe it or not.
Yes,
People are more profound, I think, than they give themselves credit for.
I think so. I think so, and I think people underestimate the power of their stories, and they think that something cataclysmic has to happen in their stories for it to be worthwhile, but that's not the case. Fundamentally, we tell stories because it's all about the connection. And, that's why we tell stories. That's why we listen to stories or read them. And yeah, they connect us. So they don't need to be earth shattering. They just need to provide a bit of a glimpse into who you are and what makes you human.
I couldn't say it better myself. Violeta, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming on.
My absolute pleasure and best of luck with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Violeta for joining me today. I told you up top, I'll say it again, she was really such a delight, and I am really excited to try the flan recipe that she sent me. I think the coolest thing as I looked at it was that it's really versatile and you can do a lot of different things with it. So I'm excited to try that. Now you can find her on Instagram at pillow_talking_pod or Facebook at the Pillow Talking Podcast. And I'm going to link both in the show notes. While you look at the show notes, you can also look at all the social media profiles for Our Last Meal, and it's really just Our Last Meal Pod on whatever social media you want to use. Instagram, I don't really use Twitter much. TikTok, YouTube, I'm trying to get more content on both of those. You also can just go to ourlastmeal.com, and if you're ever interested in being a guest on the podcast, I would love to talk with you. You can just reach out by clicking the Share Your Story button at the top of the page. I said again at the top of the episode, if you enjoy this, please like it, rate it, review it, share with people. I hate doing the typical podcast thing of begging for all that, but just anything to try to get the word out there to get other people to listen. I really think what I do over here has potential to be helpful, and that's my goal. And I hope if you're listening, it is helpful to you. I hope if you enjoy it, you will consider doing those. If you don't enjoy it, still reach out to me. Let me know what I could do better. I'm always open to feedback. With that said, in 2 weeks, I'll have an episode with Drew, and had a really fun conversation with him. Really, really just meaningful is, I guess, the best way I can describe that. So that'll be dropping in a couple weeks. And in the meantime, I hope you will take the time to have a meal with somebody you care about and just focus on being there with them and being present. Take care, and until next time.